how you can take Etsy ads, drive sales, and then from there, those sales can take your rankings and push them up inside of the Etsy algorithm. Now, someone said, well, Scott, I heard that those are two separate things. And Etsy, even though you got sales in on your listing, they're not going to help you in organic. They're only going to push that as far as your Etsy ads. And if you stop Etsy ads, the one side is going to stop and your organic doesn't get touched. It just, you don't get any extra traffic for that. I find that really, really, really hard to believe that that's the truth. Chris, let's discuss this. Can I have your thoughts, common sense wise? Would this make sense? What's your thoughts on it? Let's kind of get to the bottom of this.
I think this is yet another one of those things that falls into the there's probably a grain of truth here somewhere category. And in my mind, where that starts to fall apart is when we get into the impact on sales side of this. So to say that the algorithm for what determines whether you show up on ads is different from the algorithm that they use to determine whether you show up for organic, that I think is where the real grain of truth here lies. Because what Etsy is considering when you're looking at organic is essentially just conversion rate and relevance. Are you relevant? If you're relevant, how relevant are you? And then how likely is somebody to turn into a sale? Pretty simple. They use a bunch of different factors, but it really boils down to that. On the ad side, they have to also think about the other people who are paying to be in those positions, because some of those relevance issues go out the window. They consider you relevant for many more keywords on the ad side than they do on the organic side. How likely is that click to turn into a sale? That piece is still there, right? And then how much of your daily budget do you have left in comparison to the other people? And do you have enough room in that budget to show for that specific search? So to say that the algorithm that determines whether you show up for a specific keyword when somebody is searching organically and in the ads uses a different algorithm, I would agree with that, because there are additional factors or different factors that somebody would have to consider when you're looking at those two possibilities. Where I start to disagree with that is real world experience, seeing turning ads off and watching additional sales disappear. If those two things were truly separate, then if we turned ads off, it would have zero impact on the organic side. Your ranking would stay exactly the same. And that's not necessarily the case. And we've seen it happen both in terms of increasing organic rank when all of our sales were coming from ads, and decreasing organic rank if we turn ads off on a product that is selling well from ads and not as well organically. Right. And so to me, what it really comes down to, Scott, is how well does the product convert in one or both of those channels? We should be looking at our conversion rate from ads and our conversion rate on the organic side of things. And that, I think, is where this starts to get confusing for people, because they say, oh, my ads aren't necessarily profitable, but if somebody does click and they come to the listing, they convert at a really high rate. That's when that can start to get murky in terms of turning the ads off. So we've seen it impact both positively and negatively the organic rank of the product. If those algorithms had nothing to do with each other, then that wouldn't happen. But if we also think through this from a common sense perspective, what does Etsy care about on the organic side? Traffic and sales. What they really care about is whether or not when they show your listing organically and someone clicks on it, will that lead to a sale? Etsy has a goal of turning everybody who searches into a customer, right? And the way to do that, the way to ensure that that happens, is to show them ads that are relevant, but also the listing or listings that are the most likely to result in them turning into a customer. It would be silly to discard all of the data that they have from the ad side and not bring that into a conversion rate consideration on the organic side at all, because they know specifically, hey, we've showed this product for this keyword in the past on the paid side. Let's give them a chance on the organic side and see if that plays out. And if it does, if you convert well on the organic side, then you're going to continue to see that increasing. And so to me, it doesn't make any sense to say that those two things don't play well with each other. They're totally separate. They exist in their own vacuums. It just doesn't make any sense. But let's just assume the premise for a second, Scott. Let's assume that they are two totally distinct algorithms and that no matter what happens on the organic side, it has zero impact on the paid side, and what happens on the paid side has zero impact on the organic side. Does it still make sense to run ads? And the answer there is yeah, right? Why? Because we then know if we show for a specific keyword, the exact same way that Etsy is thinking about this, if you read through their documentation, we know if we show for water bottle on the paid ad side, then we convert at a 10% rate. Again, I'm just making these numbers up, right? If we show for mug or insulated bottle, we convert at a 2% rate. So we can still, assuming it had no impact, take the data and help tailor the listing to convert better on the organic side, which is what you should be doing anyway, to really narrow that listing down in terms of what we rank for on SEO, make ourselves relevant for the terms that are backed up with sales data, ignore some of the other stuff, and focus the organic traffic on what we know is working. So even if they had no crossover at all, it's still worth running ads because we're getting the data that we can then feed back into the listing to pay off on the organic side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got some more stuff to add to that.
Ooh.
So here's the other thing, and this is not even talked about, and that is, okay, let's say that what you're saying, Chris, is 100% true as far as they're two separate algorithms, which I do believe there's an algorithm to both of them. I do believe that. But here's where you still are going to benefit, even if that was 100% the case. Number one, you're probably going to get some reviews from those paid ads. Okay. People that buy are going to probably leave a review. Those reviews are going to show up on your listing. Organic, paid, doesn't matter, which is going to probably take those 100 organic viewers and turn more of them into customers. So now we've just pushed that up. So it has nothing to do with the algorithm. It just has to do with you've got more reviews on your listing. It's going to probably convert higher. All right. And if you convert higher there on your organic, well, then naturally you're going to probably go up in the search. So that's how that can kind of feed that side of it. The other thing is, let's say that you're running paid ads and they come over to your listing and they favorite it. They don't buy it, they favorite it. Well, automatically you're going to trigger something that you've set up inside of your Etsy account that's going to send them a coupon code that says, hey, I saw that you liked this item. You favorited it. Want to buy it? Give you 10% off, right? Or maybe they come over from that ad and they don't buy, but they added it to their cart. We can send an email to that. Or maybe they do end up buying from that ad and then we get to promote something else because we can give them 20% off your next purchase. Okay. So all of that other stuff happens because of the Etsy ads. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's your algorithm, but it is definitely going to increase your sales, which will increase your sales on the organic side, which will then increase your rank. Even if, which I do believe that if you get sales through a listing, regardless, I think it's going to have some movement on the rankings because I think that Etsy's going to look at that as well, hey, if these people, like you said, Chris, if these people bought it, the paid people, what about the people over here that are just showing up in free search? I wonder if they would convert. So there's got to be something in the algorithm that's going to say, hey, it's been validated over here. Let's validate it over here. Right. So yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits and I hope that cleared some things up here.
If you look at some of the nerdy stuff in terms of their documentation, they do a lot of things to try to give listings a benefit of the doubt. And Allison said, if you post something and don't drive sales till 6 months later, will it still boost it in the algorithm? And Scott, you know this, and people watching this will know this. You've probably all heard of what's referred to as like the Etsy bump or the Etsy boost, right? It seems like every time you create a new listing, you get a little bit of a push in organic until they can try to figure out where they think that you fit in. Right? And the reason that they do that is because they're trying to figure out if they show your listing to people, will people buy it? And then if they buy it, how likely are they to buy your listing versus my listing? And the only way to do that from a purely organic standpoint, if you're not running Etsy ads, is to test. those new listings. And Etsy literally has that built into their algorithm. They also look at some of the things like the sales history of your store. They look at all of these different things that could possibly influence conversion, and they try to give you the benefit of the doubt when you first come out of the gate so that they can figure out whether or not they should rank you and where they should rank you and how they should rank you. Anytime we can give them additional data, all it does is speed up that process. If we use the if I list it, they will come approach, to Allison's point, in a lot of cases, you won't see any sales for 3, 4, 5, 6 months because you get a very small trickle of traffic coming in from Etsy's little test to say, hey, let's try them for water bottle. Let's try them for mug. Let's try them for this. And they'll put you in a couple different positions. Maybe you get some clicks, maybe you don't. Maybe you get some sales, maybe you don't. And then they eventually figure out how you fit into the overall ecosystem for those search terms. If we can pile a lot of data on top of that for Etsy, it would be silly for them to ignore it. But even if they do, to your point, Scott, you're getting customers who are going to come back and buy other things from you. You're learning the keywords so you can then go back into your listing and say, hey, Etsy, maybe don't show me for mug. Let's take that out of the listing. Let's put insulated water bottle or tumbler or whatever we want to call it back into the listing because that's what's converting on the ad side. We're getting the reviews. We're getting sales. We're starting to give Etsy the information that they need. And then when we do get that opportunity on the organic side, we have everything in place that we need to really start that organic flywheel going. So even if there isn't a crossover, which we've seen firsthand with increases and decreases in rank, when we are running ads and getting the extra sales or aren't running ads and aren't getting the extra sales, even if that wasn't the case, we're still giving Etsy data that they can act on and look at. And we're giving ourselves as the listing creator, the data that we need to optimize it so that even if they didn't have any impact on one another, that we can put our best foot forward with Etsy and say, look, here's what my listing is all about. And I know that when I show for this search term, people will buy it. We have the sales data to back it up, and we can sculpt that listing to give ourselves the best chance when they do show us.